Let's have a look at question 3 now. So using a significance level of alpha equals to 5%, the null hypothesis can be rejected, true or false. Well, let's see. Does the hypothesis, remember we're comparing the mean willingness to pay for both products. So let's see if we reject that or not. We already calculated our t statistic, which is going to be 1.98. We have to compare that with the critical value. Let's see what the critical value is going to be in this case, because we're having what? We're having a t critical value with a 0.05 significance level, but it has to be divided on two tails. So we're going to have here 0.025 on one tail, and the degrees of freedom are going to be again the number of observations minus 1. So n minus 1. Now if we look it up in the table, we will have 60 degrees of freedom. So over here we'll have 60, let me change colors a bit because this is too light, 60 degrees of freedom and 0.025 upper tail probability. That corresponds to a t critical value equals to 2. Let's draw this on the distribution to understand what we're doing. So when we have a two-sided hypothesis test, over here we have the t symmetrical distribution around the mean of 0. When we have it on two sides, that means that we could either reject the hypothesis on the right tail or on the left tail. We don't know exactly. So we allow either this rejection region or that rejection region. And we know that it has to be at least this value to reject the null hypothesis. So we're gonna put the critical values on our table as well. We're gonna have here the critical value of 2 and minus 2 because they have to be symmetrical. Now our value is 1.98. Let's draw it. What's 1.98? If we put it over here, it's slightly less than 2. Over here, 1.98. We can see that it's still not in the rejection region. Very close, but not yet. So we do not reject the null hypothesis. We don't reject the null hypothesis. What was the null hypothesis? That the average willingness to pay for both products is the same. Well, if we cannot reject the hypothesis, we do not have evidence. We do not have enough evidence that the mean willingness to pay for the products differs. So let's write like that. Not enough evidence that the average willingness to pay, I'm going to write WTP, for the products differ significantly. For the yogurts, actually, products differ significantly. Now, this conclusion can be easily changed if we would use the z critical value, because the z critical value would be 1.96 and 1.98 would be in the rejection region. But again, because we're using the sample standard deviation, we're going to use the t values from the t distribution. For that case, we have the value of 2 as a critical value, and we can see that it's not in the rejection region. So make sure you make this distinction, like which critical value to use when, because the conclusions might change if you're like on the edge. Anyway, hope this all makes sense, and we are done.